Hey, what's up guys? It's Adam with RC Logger and welcome back to my workbench. Today we are going to continue our assembly of the NovaX. What I have in front of me are all the components necessary to assemble the bottom half of the frame. This is mainly what the motor arms are going to connect to, and we're going to build off of that. So this obviously, in front of me, I have everything torn apart. You see a lot of fasteners here, some carbon fiber plates. There's a battery strap holder. This is a component that secures our battery, keeps it in place. I have a gimbal mount. I have my lower plate frame itself. I've also got my landing gear receiver mounts and a bunch of screws. So for tools, I have my power driver. Again, if you're not comfortable using one of these or you're worried about stripping a screw out, grab a hand driver, it'll work fine also. I guess I'm just lazy when it comes to putting screws in, and when you've worked on as many Novas as I have, you'll appreciate one of those too. I've got different bits. Of course I have some hex bits and some Phillips, some different size Phillips bits. I've also got a nut driver. I'm going to need that. This is a 5.5 mil. I've got a pair of needle nose pliers. If you don't have any of these things, support your local hobby shop. They will appreciate it. So let's move on to assembly. First things first, I'm going to work off of my lower plate. One side of it I have my RC Logger sticker. There's some other QC pass information. So that sticker is going to face downwards. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by installing my landing gear receiver mounts. This is probably the most tedious part because the fasteners are really small and the nylon locking nuts are also really small, and the nylon nuts will actually sit into these holes. So I normally do these one at a time. If you want to try to get adventurous and do 4 at once and try and slide things on there, hey, more power to you. I just learned from my ways, and I find one at a time is easier. So I'm going to start with my fastener, put it through the hole, then I'm going to line up my receiver mount. Now that that hole's lined up, that's cool, but I got to get that nut in there, which is a pain in the butt. So I'm actually going to drop the nut in, and I'm going to use my needle nose pliers to hold it in place. And I got lucky, the nut landed right side up. There's a nylon ring at the top of each one of these nuts, and that nylon ring should be up, facing up, away from the thread of the fastener for starters. So I'm going to push it down in there, and it's going to kind of push that screw back out to me. Now I'm going to hold everything in place. I want to make sure I have my small Phillips bit on, which of course I don't. Alright, let's switch them over. And make sure my driver's in forward, and I'm just going to start that fastener. I felt I got it started, so that's a good thing. The nut hasn't fallen out yet, so that's a good thing. And now I can work on tightening it down. Again, this is like a little bit tedious. Just be patient and you will prevail. So I've got that one started. Now it'll get a little bit easier because I have I can align all my other fasteners a lot easier. I'm going to drop the next nut in the hole. Sorry, I keep moving this thing all over the place. You're going to have to bear with me here, guys. This is a little bit time consuming. And if this runs too long, I'm going to cut the video short and then just jump ahead showing you how everything is installed after I get these fasteners started. So what I've done here is I've found a better way. And before I put this last nut in, I figured I would show this to you also. I have a real small Phillips head screwdriver. If I take the nut and I flip it over to where the nylon end of the nut is facing the tip of the screwdriver, I can then seat the nut into the recess without it flipping over and flipping around in there and flipping upside down. Then I can hand start my fastener into the nut, grabbing it securely like so. So I've got the other ones in already. I'm just going to run these fasteners in now, but I figured that would be cool to show you so you don't go crazy trying to install these. Like I said, these are the most difficult fasteners to install. They're also extremely important to get nice and tight because the landing gear are going to go into this receiver, and you want to make sure that the mounts are snug to the frame. Otherwise, when you do landings and stuff like that, things could get sloppy, and you're going to create some stress points, and potentially you could have a failure or fracture. So get those boys nice and snug, and you're good to go. Next, what we're going to do is we are going to install the battery holding tray. This is kind of cool because we actually utilize the rubber gimbal bushings. These are like the gimbal bushings that support the gimbal holder to kind of hold this tray in place. The thing is we want to install this tray like so. So this is the bottom plate, and this is the bottom of the bottom plate, and this is the bottom of the tray. So this tray is going to drop in here like so. Okay, and this is what it should look like. These tabs will be facing the back of the aircraft, and there's no possible way to put this in backwards. If you do so, nothing will line up, nothing will work. You will know immediately that there's only one way for this to go. You want these tabs to just be facing upwards. So this is snug and in place. What we want to do next is begin by installing our battery strap. This has to happen next before we run these screws in for these rubber bushings, because it's really hard to kind of pry this battery tray holder up to put that strap in afterwards. And there is a method to this. Basically, there's a small slot. You're going to feed the strap through the small slot, and I take it all the way to the tabs on the other side here. This will give me the perfect amount of distance once I attach my lower plate to my NovaX frame for supporting my battery properly. So just trust me when I say this. You're going to take this strap all the way to the other side, and that's going to be your distance. Now, what I do is I actually take the strap after that, and I hold it in place once I've got my distance, once I know what my distance is, and then I fold the strap underneath. See if I can get that there for you. I fold my strap underneath that plate, and I kind of trap it in place. And what this does is creates a nice tighter grip for this strap and doesn't allow things to slide around. So mine's just kind of folded under there, and that's how it's going to sit. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install my rubber bushings, and I have bushings and fasteners. Those are going to go in these 4-hole locations located closest to the center of the frame. So there's only 8 holes left. I'm looking for the holes closest to the center. I'm going to put my fastener through here. I'm going to hold it in place. And this is an M. Oh man, I'm not quite sure what it is, but it'll pop up on the screen right now. Then I'm going to start by hand threading on my bumper. Couple turns just to get it going. Let's do the other ones, all while kind of holding my battery strap in place and holding the tray down. If you need a second set of hands, that would be helpful, but it can be done by yourself. You just have to be a little patient with it. If it was easy, anyone could do it, right? Okay, now we're going to switch over to the metric hex driver. It's a 2.0. Let's switch the bits out. Okay, I'm going to hold each one of these bumpers down to the carbon fiber plate. See, things kind of move around right now, but once you zip these screws in, everything will get nice and tight. And I'm going to run the fasteners in. Wow. Let's make sure all my stuff is lined up. Looks pretty good, looks pretty good. Tighten that other side down. So once you tighten these screws down, the rubber grommets on the back side actually kind of squeeze this tray and hold it in place. Eventually this tray is going to get fastened to the bottom of the frame, but this is kind of nice because now I can finish working on things and it's just held by friction more or less. So let's tighten these last couple of screws down. You do not need Loctite because these are rubber bushings on the other side and the compression actually secures them in place. So now I've got my strap. I know that I'm nice and snug. I don't have anything to worry about. I am good to go. as far as continuing to install the rest of my tray, my lower frame support. Sorry about that. Next I want to do is I want to install my gimbal mount, and in order to do that I need to make sure I'm putting it in the correct direction. The indication of these two tabs, this is the rear of the NovaX, so I want this tab facing forward for my NovaX. So then I'm going to install this mount. I have 4 nylon screws right here. These are locking screws. Start them by hand. This is where I'm going to need my 2.5 millimeter nut driver. These do not require Loctite either. There we go. And run these guys down. Lock them into place. Cool. Okay, so I'm assembled. Now what I need is my Nova, and it just so happens I have one here. If you use a little creativity, you can take the foam insert out of your packaging and flip your Nova over, and that makes life super easy for installing the bottom tray. So I got my battery strap here. It's kind of hanging loose. What I need to do is I need to feed it through. There's a holder. Let's get a close-up of that guy. This is the holder on the top plate, and that battery strap needs to get fed through there. Well, the strap is wider than the holder, so I need to fold my battery strap in half like this to get it started. So this is one of those advantages of using your foam insert. Hopefully you still have your packaging, because it holds your Nova in place while you do this process. So then I'm just going to pull it through by hand. I know it's folded in half, but once I get it through, there we go. Flip that bad boy around so it's facing the right way, and there we go. Now I'm ready to close up my lower plate and put it onto my arms. I can also run my battery lead through the hole in the strap and then flip this guy over. The lower frame has some slots in it, and it enables you to line up all of the motor arms correctly, and that will enable you to line up the screw holes correctly. Now before I go ahead and fasten this down, I'm just going to look everything over, make sure I've got all my fasteners tight, everything looks good. I'm going to drop these screws in next. There's 4. These are M3 by, I believe, 10 mil. If not, they're going to show up on the screen right now. Okay, and then I'm going to take my driver. I'm going to use my larger Phillips bit. Run that down nice and snug. All 4 screws, making sure all my holes line up. And all of a sudden, I've got a nice secure bottom plate. Just double check, make sure everything's nice and snug, and we're good to go. So I think that pretty much concludes how to assemble the lower portion of the frame. If you have any questions, you can always find us at support@rclogger.com. Thanks a lot for watching.